proposed to do is reverse that. Just a couple stations. Pahala and Waiohino would be brought to East Hawaii. Lapuehoi, Pauilo, Honoka, Waimea would reverse. Instead of going to Pu'anahulu, they would come back to Hilo. And that's considering that Honoka'a and Waimea are 7-day-a-week stations. These are not 3-day-a-week transfer stations. So in preliminary discussions looking at tonnage, that would reverse that. And I know Waimea has concerns in terms, what is the impact of doing that on our communities? And the impact would be, instead of Lapuehoi, Pauilo, Honoka'a going through Waimea, you'd only have Waimea coming back. So we'd actually minimize the impact on Waimea and North Hawaii. And Pahala and Waiohino coming to East Hawaii should give us that capacity. So after much careful consideration, that is what we're here to share with. And you know, you guys, this has been probably as challenging a department and issue, I think, as any council or any mayor has considered. I wish this was year one of our administration, but it's not. But I still feel that we have time, and this issue isn't going to get easier. It's not going to get cheaper, and ultimately, this is why we all do what we do, to make the difficult decisions that ultimately benefit our community. And we could certainly, you know, ask for more studies. We could explore more options, but we're way past that. In fact, I want to thank Ilihia. See you around, Ilihia. Thank you. I've asked Ilihia to dig up every single solid waste study ever done, catalog, summarize, tab, box. So if any council member wants to look at any study, we have it, library and catalog. I was thinking of shifting Ilihia to solid waste, and praying and hoping that he doesn't get sent there. But so we have that material for any of you. If you guys want to look at it, it's documented. The reason I wanted every study catalog documented and made easier for any of you to access is I want to respectfully discourage further study. We have so many studies on the books, so many studies to look at. And the easy path is to study more. You know, I could study more and curse the next mayor with this issue, but that wouldn't be kind, because might be one of you, so I'm trying to help you guys out. But that's where we're at. I appear before all of you to share that. Happy to answer any questions that any of you have regarding this very challenging and difficult issue. And if any of you have more intensive questions, happy to direct it to the smart folks behind me. Yes,
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mayor Kenoi. So yeah, we'll open it up now to questions and discussion. Ms. Poindexter, Mr. Onishi, Mr. Moyle.
I'd just like to say that I'm glad that we're not going to be doing any more studies, because you know, we're so far behind and we need to start taking action. I want to say that I appreciate the two-stage RFP process. I think that is the smartest way to go. I agree that the qualifications are extremely important because they have already had faced the EPA compliance and the strict guidelines at EPA. So what you have presented, I think was excellent, especially the RFP process. You know, looking at the qualifications, you know, that is the strength of how we will move forward. You know, because you can choose to move forward without all the qualification, and then will be, you know, it'll be harder because you have to. There's a lot of quirks that you got to fix. They may not have met compliance. They may not have the financial stability that is needed. So all what you have presented, I'm very impressed with this, and I say let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And I want to give credit where credit is due, and a lot of people have guided, suggested, made recommendations. We've listened, we've discussed, and conversations. A lot of smart people have weighed in, and we wanted to set up a process whereby you're going to be challenged, right? This is a big ticket item. You know, whoever doesn't win or get awarded is more likely than not going to challenge it, right? We see challenges on small projects. You've got to anticipate that challenge. So in anticipation of that, it requires that we be very diligent, very thorough, very open and transparent because every step would be carefully scrutinized. And so I've asked our team to please dot every I, cross every T, go back and look at it again. I'd rather be careful and slow up front than get 6 months, a year down the road and go, oh shucks, we could have, should have, would have. You know, let's ask those questions today instead of tomorrow. So thank you.
Mr. Onishi?
Good morning, Mayor.
Hey, good morning, Councilman. How are you?
Okay, good, and you?
Good, thank
How
you.
was the Super Bowl?
Oh, I stayed home with my kids.
Point of order, let's stay on point here. No, just-
Actually, I was home with my kids and never go Super Bowl party, man. I don't like even say who my team is, and it was okay. Bruno Mars was excellent. One of our local boys, Roosevelt High grad.
And he's selling his home now. I just seen in the news. He has a 3-point-something million home in Oahu, and he's selling it. It's up for sale.
Yeah.
Bruno Mars.
Oh,
yeah.
God bless the brother. Public school education, just go for show at the DOE.
No,
Go ahead.
but, yeah, I totally support what you said about the reduction, waste reduction. And for the years that I've been on the council, when I first got in, like in 2008, when the administration came into, the landfill is in my district. And in district, at that time was 4, now it's 3. But to me, also the concern was the community, Kikaha, Paneva, they paid their price for how many years, right? And they had to get all the smells and everything like that. And so, past councils wanted to build another landfill in that close area. And I said, like, no ways, I'm gonna fight for the community because I said, there's other alternatives. And this is great. When I hear the administration moving forward to see what options we can do, that's, it's wonderful. And the community, I guarantee you, in Panama and Kikaha will be happy about that. And the other thing I just wanted to mention, and then also in our district, we have the wastewater, right? So we have a lot of burden for half of the island and so forth. So to me, it's great to hear that. The other thing I want to just mention is that with Pisces, there's a study with the UH Manila with the fly ash, and to do it into lunar concrete, which is like just regular concrete that they're going to put all these particles and make it like, instead of using regular cement, you can use all these entities or this commodities to do this paving or doing sidewalks. So this is a great opportunity for them to expand too, because what you're looking at is importing it from Honolulu, from H-Power. But now if we can have our own, it's going to be here, and we can use that the fly ash to help do that project. But thank you. You got my 100% support on your project, and I'll always support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Onishi. Mr. Yoshimura?
Hello, Mayor.
Yeah, aloha.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation. Having been here for now our 4th term, we've been through a lot, and as you recall the process before, I'm really happy to hear that we've learned from what happened in the past and improved upon them. I'll tell you, there's many things that I'm clearly excited about. You talked about casting a wide net for all technology. Awesome. I think we should have done that from the very beginning, and so props for that. Looking at private financing, I think it's very important. That should have been done in the past too, and so RFP for 1 year. Speeding up the timetable. We need to do this now, and I think that's a realistic timetable. And I'm excited for the community because we'll finally make a decision and move forward. Because leadership, when we look at how we lead the county, lead the people, we need to be clear, logical, concise, and I think you've done that in your message, with the spirit of aloha as well. Because no matter what we did or didn't do in the past, we're focusing on the now, and I think you providing this framework, this map, this time period for the people brings high hopes. as far as I can do, I'll do everything I can to support the process, because it is time, and I thank you for updating us on everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Yoshimoto. Mr. Kanuha, and then followed by Ms. Yap.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mahalo, Mayor Kenoi, for the presentation. I'm extremely happy to see this process moving forward. And I think the community has been waiting for a long time. What are we gonna do? And you taking on this challenge, even us taking on this challenge, is gonna be one of the biggest things that we do as a council and as an administration. So, mahalo to your administration, the environmental management. I support the process that you're moving forward with. In the beginning of our campaigns, when we were first campaigning for this office, for myself, I pushed for the reduce, reuse, recycle. Like, make sure we still have that going forward. And as you said right earlier, we don't want to give up on that process. The reduce, reuse, recycle, and the green waste. That's really important to our community. If we can still do that, moving along with this waste energy or waste reduction technology, I think that's going to play a big role in our community and for the people to support this how we move forward with this. So, mahalo for that. Just again, just a lot of praise to the administration for taking that leadership role and saying we need this done. And so I'm all with you. I'm gonna push for this as well. I think we need this to happen. And if it becomes, if we can find that proven technology that can benefit this community for generations to come, looking way down the line, that's going to be the most important. So, mahalo for everything, and mahalo, Chair.
Thank you very much. Ms. Yap.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good morning, Mayor, and thank you to
morning.
our
Absolutely.
cabinet for being here too, and your department, and all the work that you guys done. But it was reflected in your presentation. It's got a plan, it's got a timeline, it was concise and exciting, and I think everything, sometimes it's just got to be at the right time, and it does feel like this is the right time. We have a very progressive council, a very progressive administration. I think we together can make this happen. I agree with what my colleagues have said, that it would be amazing if before you leave office, and before some of us leave office, that we can accomplish this, because it's got to be done, and we need to lead the way. I think with all the information, maybe because we have waited, and the studies, and maybe what other items have succeeded in, and what's out there, that we will be leaders in not only reuse and recycle, but creating energy out of our waste. So thank you for coming today, and look forward to working together on this.
Thank you, Ms. Yap. Ms. Ford.
Thank you for coming in, Mayor. Great presentation. The things I really appreciate are the fact you're going to throw wide net for technology. We didn't do that. We didn't do that before. The timeline, I'm very happy about. Sooner the better. I love the reversal of the trucks bringing more stuff into Hilo. Means less landfill. But I have some questions.
Sure.
Surprise, right?
No, hey, we welcome them. Hey, the more questions we ask, the more information we get.
Does anyone on your staff know what percentage of, was I off the whole time?
No,
Oh, just,
that's good.
thank you. What percentage of our total tonnage of 537 is green waste?
Well, again, that number, 537, was 2010, 2011.
Right?
Went down to 430, now at 450.
I'm just.
Okay, I can tell you right now, just on the numbers, that I was able to work with our team.
Mayor, I think one of your staff has some information.
You get the percentage right off the
The
top.
537 does not include the green waste.
That's really good information. Okay, that's really good. So we're not gonna lose,
The numbers
it
are
really
doing
is,
math.
it's good.
No, yeah, it's separate.
It's
We're
separate.
we're not including recyclables, and we're not including green waste.
Excellent, that is really, really important.
Yeah.
Now, whatever is left though, the last time we went through this, shall I call it an ordeal? Last time we went through this, one of the issues that came up was there's kind of a rule of thumb. Now, this is several years ago, things have changed, but the rule of thumb was unless you had approximately 500 tons of combustibles
not scrap metal that doesn't burn and make anything, you know, putting aside our green waste and our plastic recyclables and scrap metal, you still needed, a rule of thumb, 500 tons of combustibles to do this. I don't know that we're there, at that, you know, based on our tonnage right now, we're not there. And so I'm going to be curious to see what it is that we're going to put through this process, whatever it is, that is going to be cost effective. So if you have any comments on that.
Sure. Thank you for that question, and that was our concern as well. So we looked around the country, and we actually have a list for all of you based on that. We said, where are waste reduction technologies on similar sized municipalities in North America?
So North America, yeah.
The list we have. You know, I didn't want to hear about Germany or Taiwan. It's like apples and oranges. So we have actually, we were surprised at the extensive list of smaller municipalities who have waste reduction technologies in the 100-ton, 200-ton, and 300-ton ranges. So we'll be happy to provide that to you. It ranged from Pennsylvania, New York, Maine, Vermont, Canada, and around the country of similar sized municipalities like us who have implemented waste reduction technology on a much smaller scale over a pretty significant period of time, some going back to the late 90s, early 2000s. So we had heard the same, that it wouldn't be cost effective unless you had 500 tons, and we were impressed of the number of townships, cities, counties with small waste reduction technology. So it assured us that not only is it being done, but it's working and has worked over a period of time. So we're comfortable that even with the tonnage we have and setting aside green waste and setting aside recyclables, that with the tonnage we have and the reversal of our waste stream, that we'll have enough to have a cost-effective waste reduction system.
That really truly puts my mind more at ease, because, you know, it was a slugfest the last time over that issue. So, the other thing is, what outcomes are we putting something into the bid to say, we wanna see certain outcomes? Obviously, we wanna reduce our waste, the combustible waste, so we don't have to bury it. But there's something that I've been really concerned about, and we brought it up last time. I wanna see the Hilo landfill taken down. I don't wanna live there. I don't want 80 years from now that the thing is still doing its ugliness. And then we've got Kealakekee that's burning, and I think there's one up in Waimea that may be burning
Right.
too. But when I say burning, I'm smoldering, although occasionally we have flare-ups, and they get nasty. So, is there gonna be anything in the bid saying, by the way, we also want you to take down this nightmare that's in Mr. Onishi's district?
That's a fair question, and I believe that's a subsequent proposal. We want to first handle our waste stream and be able to extend the lives of both landfills currently, because if we all collectively are successful in implementing a waste reduction technology, both landfills' life term will expand.
Absolutely.
So that question has been raised, we've talked about it a little bit, and we didn't want to cast it that far, because first things first, we want to first tackle the tonnage we're bringing in daily, and then, but that issue remains on the table. What do we do with Kealakekee and its closure? What do we do with Waimea and the Hilo landfill?
Right. I agree with your philosophy on first things first. Absolutely gotta take care of the stuff we're doing now. However, is it possible to put in an option into the bid?
I'm sure that can be explored. We can take a look at that, but,
I'm only
because I talked
asking.
about that, well, we cannot, but with the sliver fill, gravel, you know, I was told, that alone, that process of
Undoing it,
undoing
Yeah.
will
it's a
will
biggie.
incur significant
It's-
costs, so.
It is, it's a really big
We
thing.
were like, oh, let's handle what we can, because if it was just an addition, that'd be one thing, but it'd be a significant cost endeavor. So we said, you know what, let's do that, let's address that later.
Okay,
Then
and
soon.
I understand, and I agree, I even agree with you, but I do think it's something we must keep in mind, because
Understand.
we're gonna be paying for these awful landfills 80
Long, long
years from
time.
now, yeah, 80 years from now,
Yeah.
we're still gonna be paying for them, and we haven't really resolved some of the problems that Mr. Onishi brought up that he's dealing with in his district. So, nobody wants to deal with it. It's always not in my backyard. They have paid a price. And so, I hope, anyway, I'll not belabor that any longer. The other thing is, at this point, is there, I still am looking for kind of a percentage of combustibles, based on all of the green waste out, all of the recyclables out, scrap metal out. Is there some percentage of the 537 that we're just ballparking right now that says approximately this much tonnage is combustible? Do we have any number on that?
Well, everything we're landfilling, we're assuming will go into this.
Tires?
Will be addressed, waste reduction. No, but the tires are already being recycled.
Excellent.
So tires aren't, so when we talk about tires, when we talk about scrap metal, those are already, being, when we talk about additional sorting, and just like when we had the sort station, we had another
Right.
1,200 tons of paper products.
Right.
We'll see,
Greg, I'm gonna take a stab at that, just in general, as the waste stream comes in, if we implement a waste reduction technology, there'll be additional sorting, which will inevitably increase the number of, or the percentage of recyclables or tonnage. Could you give a rough estimate? Well, as the mayor said, we're
Wait, excuse me.
Oh,
Greg,
like, come on.
please go.
Mr. Goodell,
Just
please
tell
come
me
up.
and I can relay on.
Yeah, it's okay.
Please,
Greg,
It'll work for you.
Greg, would you identify yourself?
Greg Goodale, Solid Waste Division Chief, Kenoi.
So the question, Greg, basically is, of the tonnage currently going into the landfill, with the implementation of a waste reduction technology, how much more recyclable will we be diverting from, for example, just take a round number. For every 100 tons that we're currently landfilling, if we were to divert that 100 tons to a waste reduction technology, whatever that technology may be, what percentage of that will, in the process of the technology, and this is a guess here,
Yeah,
we're making
Tom?
an educated guess. How much additional paper products, plastic, recyclables, aluminum will we probably get out of that?
Well, you know, and as you said earlier, we're gonna have to go through and do the additional sorting before whatever process we do. So it's likely, you know, it could be up as high as, you know, 80% of the material. So, you know, you could still wind up with the material that you can't run through that process, whatever it is, whether it's incineration or plasma arc or digestion or whatever. You're still going to have that residual, but you know it could be in that neighborhood. But again, it depends on the technology that's employed. So,
Because when you're talking scrap metals, you're talking iron-based things, right?
but those are separated out.
Those
ahead-
are already
ahead of time.
separated,
So
right.
yeah,
But the aluminum has not been, because it's not a ferrous metal, right?
that would also go through that same process, that removal ahead of time.
But much of that is already diverted, right? Most
Right.
people are already, you know, they go in, turning it in, getting money, they're already recycling that part. And there's, you know, two bin, high-fi, so a lot of diversions already occur. Thanks, Greg.
Mayor, I thank you for coming in and giving us this
No problem.
information, and I'm really you.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Ms. Willie?
Hi, Billy.
Margaret.
I'm glad you were able to attend the Cherry Blossom Festival and that we
Oh,
lucked
every
out
year,
in weather.
every year. You know, Roxy Waldron, I want to go on record and saying, does an amazing job. Hawaii County, all of you should be really proud of the Culture and Arts program. Because it's a county-driven program. It's a community-based program, but I'm amazed what just, she has 2 staff, and every year, the Cherry Blossom Festival is amazing, and we honor our distinguished kupuna. So me and my wife make sure every year we go and make sure I bond dance, and it's pretty special out there in Waimea. It was
Right.
beautiful.
And next year you'll have to come to the seniors cherry pie bake-off. We had over.
Wow, I never hear about that one yet. Usually I'm a kupuna attendee. You know, the kupuna voting percentage is 98.9%, you know. No, it's just,
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you for your presentation, and I do have a few questions.
Sure. Please.
In terms of qualifications, you're sort of going up in terms of wanting 3 years or looking at that. I just would like you to look at that a little more closely and maybe do it where you prefer 3, but allow in perhaps some that have less than that. I think with an area with such rapid changing in technologies, sometimes 3 years is a long time. Now, that doesn't mean you choose someone that would add less, but I would prefer that you open up that a little bit wider, or perhaps with a justification. It's just such a rapidly changing area. I know, I met with some people in California that are work in this area, and they're just really working on the changing technology. So that's just a suggestion, not a question. And I know they're focused on no burn, so I'm glad to hear you're looking at all wide technologies. And I think the only other one concern is it possible to do any composite, at least I'm glad to see you're doing the 2 rounds, and I see Bobby nodding. In other words, perhaps there's one that's composting and another group that can do X, and they have great records, but perhaps they wouldn't be an umbrella to all the technologies. So again, that's really more of a suggestion that you somehow, that first round, you keep it a little bit loose, that where maybe they wouldn't be handling one company handling 100% of the waste stream. So you understand what I'm saying?
I think,
Okay.
I think I am, but I'd like to answer that by saying no one company will handle all of our waste stream, because currently Department of Environmental Management has 20 contracts out there with a myriad of vendors, regarding tires, regarding scrap metal, regarding paper, regarding tires. So and our green waste, we have 100 tons a day that's not included in this, and that still leaves an area open for our farmers, so that our farmers still have green waste. Or it could be, we might have a vendor at some other future point in time to do organic composting, whereby we have a higher value added product than just mulch, green waste, but instead we have true composting that gives a high level fertilizer to our local farmers.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to see with that 100 tons. So to your question of whether or not in the first stage RFP, somebody will.
Can we,
I feel like should I step up and right now?
do you know where that's coming through?
I'm willing at any time. I like to sell somebody mahalo. Thanks, Edja.
Yeah. Do I
Come
just
on now.
gender the background? Hey, how much your contract for, brother? Curious.
I'm gonna call just a quick recess.
Yeah.
Just figure it out. 5-minute recess.
Abundance.
Wrestling? Like they had you in wrestling thing,
But then that's why all we have to know about also see it
Oh my gosh, he's naked.
But I wasn't listening as three before, but I can see everything I see here, and I don't listen to everything here.
That's it.
And we're also like screen, I can see the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Space inside. Surfing park. Okay, surfing park.
You know what happened before now? I think they went to their individual.
I can't a politician talk about politics. Like surf, like Sheikh Donnery, Chachi, like Jeff Hancock. Keeping it real. Yeah, keeping it real.
Hey, that's how it's all, yeah. So they want me to say,
Keeping it real.
that's not working.
Right there.
Come on.
You remember talk about the kinky surf we had, being health and healthy thing, like, you know, the kinky track. In fact, I go to Kenoi for I'm gonna jump rope Kenoi for next month. With 600 kids. Toby just recently as president, CEO of T, we'll do that. KTA was, now it's sponsored passionately. It's our intro, we'll sponsor Mayor's Column, keeping it real. About surf, Toby just said this morning, last week, president, CEO, he took a look at that. Right there, he looked, good job. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I know what I'm talking about. Totally cool. Okay.
Go back over here.
Mr. Kern, could we start?
I'm still on. Except for that big green thing comes down, but that's okay.
You've been thinking about it.
I'm calling the meeting back to order. Ms. Willie, you still have the floor?
Yes, thank you. One of my concerns is just with our contract that we have with Waste Management. Having read that, I don't know, they've got a lot of leverage and power there. I don't wanna you've reviewed that. We're not gonna take a hit by moving those other, transfer stations.
Yes.
Okay,
That's correct, Margaret, because we have a sliding scale, what we pay them, and it goes every 50 tons. If we put over 400 tons, it's one amount. If it's 300 tons, it's one amount. If it's 200 tons, it's a minimum, there's that amount.
okay,
So for example, we currently say we're sending 300 tons today. We pay $15,000 a day based on that sliding scale. If we send them 200 tons, we pay them $14,000 a day. They're guaranteed a certain amount, but the amount that the county would pay will be fine. We looked at
Okay.
that number.
They're not gonna
And we looked at that
challenge and
contract.
say-
Yeah, we don't owe them, we're not guaranteeing them 300 or 400. We
Right.
guarantee 200 tons. But if we go to 150 to 200, we look at the cost, we'll be talking a variation about $1,000 a day max, but that's not
Right.
considering the value we're getting from a waste reduction. So the benefit of diverting our waste stream to a waste reduction technology versus landfilling it in West Hawaii, the benefits certainly exceed the cost.
okay.
So we check that.
Okay, that's good. And just in terms of recyclables and non-recyclables, as we're trying to move things into the recyclable category, I mean, all of this is a balancing. And I've read about a number of municipalities that have gone bankrupt because they just don't have that tonnage in there where they expected to have that amount. So again, those are just concerns that I think that you would need to address, but looking at counties where they thought they had the greatest and then suddenly they're going bankrupt because they are not making the amount of default money for not providing sufficient sufficient tonnage. And I think I just appreciate what you said about the composting. Given the little red ant problem and other issues in terms of mulch, and providing for farmers, but not just farmers, I think that there's really high usage of that green waste with landscapers and residences. So, and I think that those are recipients that could be really increased. I mean, there is a good market there, so. Anyway, I'll be looking forward to seeing what you come up with, and I'm glad to hear from you and Bobby Jean that you're as open I think she talked about certain WHOIs and coming together where there are different technologies that could be involved and as a group being proposed rather than the one big guy that's gonna oversee the whole thing and look at all the options. So thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Willie. Mr. Logan?
Thank you, Chair. Mayor, good morning.
Good morning, Councilman.
I just want to say your presentation was very informative and exciting, and you truly are a man of action. And I'm not just saying that because I want some projects in Puna going.
I'm sure you're not saying that because you want anything in Puna. I wouldn't in any way attribute that
was not why.
motive to that statement.
Well,
Nevertheless, thank you very much, Councilman.
I just wanted to say, there was, I believe Councilmember Ford mentioned the mining, the landfill, and
Yes.
you found out that it was expensive.
Yeah, it's not as easy as you would first think. For someone like myself, a layperson, not an engineer or someone, I thought the first thing, I'm thinking tonnage. Let's just take down that mountain, you know, and the tonnage, but every day, you know, it's covered in fill, sliver fill, that is crushed rock at every level, and that's required, right? That's the guideline, DOH, EPA. So, I mean, so you gotta figure every level of waste is covered with this rock, blue rock, and you would have to sift through all of that. So, when we explored that option, people looked and said, hey, that alone, just that initiative or endeavor or project would be labor intensive, cost intensive, and would take some work. And once you open, you know, the landfill, you're dealing with a whole new set of challenges, environmental and otherwise. And you'd have to get a whole new permit and process. So we're like, ooh, let's tackle our waste stream that we have before we go tackling the waste stream that we had. And because Kealakehe poses a greater challenge, if we could take down one landfill versus the other, you know, like Councilman Onishi says, you know, our Hawaiian home communities have had an environmental justice challenge. When you see the sightings of wastewater treatment plants, solid waste, it's on our Hawaiian home communities, airport, so they bear a great share of our burden. But you look at Kealakehe, if we could take down an area, we would take Kealakehe because you didn't have that gravel, rock, sliver feel on a daily basis. And I said, hey, let's tackle that first because the Kealakehe landfill is right in our population center, right next to the high school, right next to proposed future commercial and residential development. And, you know, so if we could take one landfill down, Kealakehe would be that one first. And hopefully, at some point in the very near future, when the waste reduction technology, whatever is selected, whoever is selected, ultimately could take that landfill waste and process it, that'd be awesome. That'd be the proverbial two birds with one stone.
I agree. That was one of the options I was thinking. But like what you're finding out through the research, it's not feasible. And it seems like inefficient tonnage is one of the big concerns. As an elected official, I'll do my part to put up as much trash as possible out there.
Hey, Councilman, you know what's amazing, and I won't distribute the list to all of you, but there's quite a few municipalities that have 100-ton and 200-ton projects, waste reduction technologies in their communities. We're all pretty surprised. We had asked some folks to, can you go and do some research? They came back with that. We were pretty impressed because we were concerned that we didn't want to, you know, what if we had to take all of, you know, the waste stream in West Hawaii and truck it all to East Hawaii to make that minimum. And then we were looking at percentages and what if we move this and what if we move that, and we thought, wow, that's reasonable, and that would put us right on target. Understanding the fluctuations, right? But, you know, we're going to have a growing population. We'll see not only a rebounding economy, but increased construction, which generates a lot of waste as well. And so we feel pretty comfortable Not absolutely positively certain, but pretty comfortable that the numbers we're looking at puts us in range where, you know, we're not cannibalizing our green waste or our recyclables to meet our projected tonnage. We're trying to keep everything separate so there's still an incentive to recycle, that our children growing up are still encouraged to be conscious of where they put their trash and how they use their trash and dispose of it. We still want to provide our farmers that additional asset through green waste mulching or composting. So, but I hear your concern, and it's ours as well.
I was talking to a farmer, actually Richard Haw, and he brought up an idea that I just wanted to pass on. I'm sure he already voiced it out to you. One of the things was, when it comes to the waste to energy, Helco is one of the utility that we would have to have that agreement. And well, one of his suggestion, his idea is actually not even working with Helco and using that power for hydrogen to fuel our mass transit. Is that one of the options that you were considering?
Did Richard get to you last week? He got to me last week. No.
I just happened to be
Richard
out there.
proposed that, and Richard's an awesome guy. I mean, you know, not is he just a hardworking farmer, but, you know, he's very innovative in his thinking, very progressive and very intelligent. You know, we've all talked about energy in a broader sense. When we look at, you know, our grid, we're all very proud of having a diverse portfolio. In fact, a couple weeks ago, I got to meet the Secretary of Energy, Secretary Moniz in Washington, D.C., myself and Mayor Cavallo. And I got to proudly say that we have one of the more diverse energy portfolios in the country. When you talk solar and wind and ocean thermal energy conversion and hydro and geothermal, very few places in the country can match that. But when we sit down and really talk about energy, and we all have this conversation because we're not just thinking of today, it's tomorrow. All of the energy we're talking about is for our energy grid. But 99% of our fossil fuel are still used for 99% of transportation is still fossil fuel based. And when you look at the rapidly advancing technology around hydrogen, which is, you know, we've got 7 megawatts a day being thrown away at Puna Geothermal Venture, that could be turned into hydrogen. The County of Hawaii, one of the more exciting projects we're working on and look to be completing soon, is 3 megawatt wind farm in North Hawaii at Lalamilo. Now that wind farm, any energy not going into the grid can be used for hydrogen. Solar excess can be used for hydrogen. And so we've been working with our federal partners, National Park. We're still trying to get a couple hydrogen buses just to prove the technology on Hawaii Island. And that will allow us to explore a couple hydrogen stations. And, you know, it's a proven technology. We're sitting right on it. I mean, it's like sitting on one energy field. And if we could, you know, I talked to Chancellor Straney, and he said he's willing to put his entire university fleet hydrogen. I mean, we could commit our county fleet to go hydrogen. We'd have the capacity to do that investment to increase that energy source. So, Councilman, you're right on it in terms of hydrogen as an important resource that we need to further explore. And I've heard that option, but stepping back with regards to the County of Hawaii and waste reduction technology, certainly whoever comes in, we would have to work with them to work with Helco. Because ultimately, if we want to use our waste stream as an asset and a source of fuel to generate energy, then ultimately we're going to have a power purchase agreement with Helco for X megawatts at X cents per kilowatt hour. And so we'll be right there with them, whoever they may be, to go to the PUC, to seek that approval, to work with our utility. You know, I hear Richard's proposal, you know, and whatever we could, if we could utilize, you know, we create a waste reduction technology at the Hilo landfill site, and we can create hydrogen stations and power up our county vehicles, that'd be awesome. But I don't think we're at the point where we could exclude Helco. They certainly need to be partners with us so that we can utilize this resource to provide a benefit to the county taxpayer, who ultimately owns that waste stream.
Well, thank you. Those were my two main those were my two main concerns, and I was just curious about that. Well, thank you, Mayor.
It's good. It's good questions to be raising and thinking about. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. Ms. Ford?
One of the things that I've become aware of working with Parks and Recreation is when we do the playgrounds, we've got to start meeting a better standard for the kids. They hit the ground, they're not cracking their heads open. And they're using tire crumbles, or we're trying to use tire crumbles. Right now, I don't think we have any contract with anyone to crumble our tires. So my question is, that could be kind of an option way off on the side. I don't know what we're doing with the tires right now. Maybe we're shipping them someplace instead of crumbling and letting our Parks and Recreation revamp our playgrounds. So I'm hoping you will kind of look at that a little bit. I hate to pay to ship it off if we could crumble it. I know the steel belts are an issue, but the crumbler has to take care of that issue. So I would like to see maybe something. They're not going to go through your plant, whatever it is. The tires aren't going through. I think we need to deal with that and stop paying for tire crumbles as much as we are. We just pay to get them crumbled. So that's one thing. Also, tire crumbles can be used in asphalt. A certain percentage they could be. I'm glad Mr. Ilagan brought up the Helco issue because Jay and I remember the last go around that we had, and the coup de grace on the last iteration of one of these types of plant was in fact a potential contract with Helco. And on that very last day, we discovered, because Mr. Ignacio came in, very good person, very honest person, and said the cents per kilowatt hour wasn't going to be anywhere near what we thought it might be. That they would not pay this, it was just over 30 cents per kilowatt hour. And he said, he honestly said in front of us, I would lose my job if I ever signed a contract paying that high an amount. So we got to be really realistic about the cents per kilowatt hour that we're going for. We may or may not get it. The other thing that happened was that he said, well, there's got to be an interface. And I'm really bad on electricity, so I apologize for this. There's got to be an interface between the plant and the grid to control all of this stuff. And we said, okay, well, how much is that going to cost? And his answer was, I don't know, it takes a study. Who pays for the study? The county pays for the study. Well, how much is the study? I don't know, it depends on all these things. I mean, it just went on and on to the point where there were a whole bunch of factors that had not been introduced up front. And so the question I have to you is, are you working with Helco right now to see where that point might be that's reasonable for cents per kilowatt hour, that is a win-win for all of us, and this interface device and the study required to put that interface in? Where are we on that issue?
First of all, I'll reaffirm what you said. Jay Ignacio, president of Helco's, a wonderful person. Very intelligent, very fair, born and raised in his community. So he understands his community very well. We have a great relationship. We've had very informal conversations with the understanding that any pursuit of waste reduction technology ultimately comes to Helco and the PUC. As we move this process forward, we'd certainly be looking at having a concurrent, not a consecutive conversation to move along that conversation. If we look at our energy grid, Aina Ko'opono, if they were successful, would have sucked up a lot of our potential energy that Helco would purchase. Thankfully, they were not successful. It was not something we supported, ultimately, because it was, it would have cost the taxpayer and the ratepayer more money. And we're not in favor of more renewable energy, we're in favor of cheaper renewable energy. And, you know, Honua, as we read in this morning's paper, has its own set of challenges going forward. And they had a PPA signed for X megawatts at X cents per kilowatt. We've been tracking what the PUC has been looking at. We've been, you know, as you know, intervening when energy proposals or PPAs come before the PUC that impact the county of Hawaii. Even though we're not direct parties, we've been intervening to make sure that the county of Hawaii is heard. With regards to working with HELCO, we understand that we need to, you know, have parameters that X megawatts are available for our energy grid, that a fair and reasonable kilowatt hour is pursued. And 30 cents is not a reasonable kilowatt to pursue under a power purchase agreement. If you look at the PPAs that are in place currently, they go from 8 to 10 to up to 19, 20 cents per kilowatt. And when we have our power purchase agreement for our photovoltaic system at the West Hawaii Civic Center, that's about what we're looking at, about 20, 21 cents a kilowatt. I want to thank Councilman Iligan for bringing up the HELCO issue to address, but I want to assure this council and the councilwoman that we are looking at that issue, and we are cognizant of the fact that we want that to move parallel with any other process that we have, so that we're not, I mean, look at Maui, right? They went through the whole RFP, they went through the selection, they went through the award, and then the vendors stopped at Maui Electric, who's saying, well, you know what, we're not really sure we need that energy. And so, you know, that's square one. So we saw that. We're trying to learn from our own previous experience as well as those of the other counties. So understanding that, we're making sure that we're open and having a conversation and dialogue that keeps us abreast of what's occurring.
I really appreciate that, because by the time this thing gets awarded, I won't even be here on the council. But I mean, to see it go that far on our previous path and then I mean, we had to kill it. I mean, there was no way we could let it go forward under those conditions. So I'm glad you're doing the concurrent negotiations with HELCO, because it's gonna be important. Where is this new facility, if we get one, going to physically be located? At the landfill?
Just in very conceptual,
Yes.
it would be where the sort station currently is.
In-
So in the back of the landfill, on our property at the Hilo landfill.
Okay.
Because that's where our trucks are already going,
Yes.
you know what I mean? We're not diverting anybody, any place. It's land we secure and own and operate. So that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Our property, our location, where our trucks and waste stream. That way, if there's any residual from this project, it'll just go right next door to the landfill.
Okay. The next couple of questions is, are you planning on taking out the sort station or allowing it to be used as an adjunct to this new facility as potential?
It'll certainly be an addition too, because it's already addressing and sorting the waste stream. We'd
Okay.
probably maintain it.
All right.
And continue to have our recyclables in place and continue to divert to a project.
All right, the last question I have for you is regarding union. I know that the last time there was a kind of a little bit of a hiccup over, are union people going to lose their jobs? Are we gonna be hiring more union people? Is the plant gonna be unionized? I mean, because it's on county property and it is a government partnership with a private entity. So could you address for us any issues that you anticipate or are going to eliminate as a problem regarding our unions?
Sure. First of all, no union employees will be losing their jobs. All of our county employees are secure, represented by our United Public Workers. We'll certainly meet and have a conversation with all involved, interested parties. But that's where we're at right now. Where anybody shouldn't have a concern that their jobs are at risk, because they're not. We wouldn't allow it to be. Anything going forward, clearly at this point, is speculative. And, you know, but the bottom line is, we're going to make sure, as we've always done in the past, to be fair to everybody involved. And we'll make sure we protect everybody's interests. And that at the end of the day, everybody feels very comfortable that it's a fair, equitable process, and ultimately, everybody's protected and assured going forward that they're treated fairly.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. We need to wrap this up, so final, make it brief, Ms. Willie.
I was a little confused when you were talking about the east side and mining. Will that be in the contract? I mean, if we,
No, it will not be in the contract.
it will not be in the
No,
contract?
I mean, what was being discussed was the potential impossibility of addressing that. We've already done a preliminary, and it's just cost prohibitive.
Okay.
And
we're not-
it muddies the water of addressing our current waste stream, which is our priority.
Okay, and do we have a concern that suddenly EPA or someone is gonna come in and we're gonna have to be mining it on our own at our own expense?
No, Margaret, we were already currently under
Okay.
EPA DOH regulations. In fact, and I owe a lot of thanks to them. Our people at wastewater and solid waste operate daily under 40 regulatory permits from the EPA, Department of Health.
Okay,
So every day we're dotting i's, crossing t's there.
okay. And are you gonna come back, or someone from your department, after the first round and sort of review where you are?
Well, once we go out on stage 1 RFP, it's under the procurement process, so there won't be any
Okay, so there won't
public
be any-
conversation. And we don't want any vendors to backdoor the process by coming to individual members and saying,
Okay,
hey, give us a shot, let us
yeah.
educate you guys on what a wonderful job. Once we go out on stage 1 on March 3rd, we're gonna respectfully request this legislative body, who will be the ultimate decision maker at the end with regards to resolution and contract approval, that you adhere to procurement rules. And, the council's of course free to request an update through executive session, and we'll be happy to do that.
Okay, and last thing, just in terms of sorting, you have the sorting station over there on the east side, but I would just encourage you to consider further sorting, personal responsibility, if that would decrease the cost, if there is any additional on-site where, by us, and not, we're not that lazy, we're not that unable to do so, so that you consider whether the sorting should go on over by county employees, or whether it should be done by each individual, whether an additional sort bin would be helpful. We can learn how to tackle that, so.
I would say that people in the county of Hawaii have been doing a great job of taking personal responsibility for recyclables. I mean, I know my kids have encouraged me and my wife to say, Dad, we need one aluminum, we need one plastic, we need glass. So we have that at home, and I see a lot of our education outreach that we're doing, the Department of Environmental Management, going to the elementary schools. A lot of us adults have been taking a more active role in recycling because of our children and the education and understanding they have. We're looking at private, commercial entities that are very much encouraging increased recycling. So, I don't think it's a government initiative to encourage personal responsibility. It's our initiative to educate and outreach. So I would respond to that by, certainly, we all want more citizens and residents to take greater responsibility and interest and participation in recycling. I believe that's occurring, and it's reflective in the numbers. And so certainly we'll do our part and ask everybody to do theirs.
Right, I'm only talking about whether we should stay 2-bin or whether a 3-bin or 4-bin. I mean,
We'll be happy to designate Margaret Willie as the outreach coordinator for increased
that
recycling.
sound, put up more bins.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Willie. So I'll close out discussion now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
You just, I'm gonna say a couple words if you don't mind.
Sure.
hanging
Oh,
out for
right.
just- I get my chance, you're gonna leave.
Being the chairman, bro, you can
Nah,
ask
never mind,
whatever
bro.
you like. Councilman.
Nah, never mind.
It's your call. No, go ahead, man.
I'm just messing with you, it'll be quick.
Really?
No,
Oh, go ahead.
thank you for the presentation.
Oh, you're
I
very
really
welcome.
do appreciate it. I like the approach. I really do like the approach with the RFI to RFP. I think it's critical. I love the fact that we're going for a 3-year track record. I really do. I don't think we should be getting into, like you say, using our island as any testing site. Let's have it, let's do it right, and let's move forward with the right technology. So we don't need to keep revisiting this or come back 5 years and be like, oh, I can't believe we made a mistake like that. We can't afford that in our island with our community. And this is an issue that needs to be handled. I think now is the time. You know, a couple years ago would have been great, but I also think there's value in having gotten the education from previous councils, that process, having those studies, and then seeing what Maui did was also incredible. You know, it's good for us, so we get to utilize all this, just as you said. I look at the, you know, reduce, reuse, recycle as, you know, that's there, that's steady, that's steadfast, we'll keep doing that. But the big thing to me is, as you said earlier, is we need to turn what is currently a liability and turn it into an asset. And we can do that. It'll benefit the county of Hawaii so greatly, and the residents of county of Hawaii, and we'll actually be doing something remarkable with that. And I heard a story about a woman in China, and she's a billionaire. She made her money off of garbage, off of rubbish. And I was just like, we can not say we're going to become billionaires here,
Council
but
Chairman, I don't see anybody who handles garbage who broke.
exactly, exactly.
You know,
And
everybody
so-
seems pretty successful who handles waste. It's amazing.
Exactly. So let's get in alignment with that as you guys are doing. I appreciate it. You have my support, absolutely. And thank you for coming in. I'd like to thank your department for coming in too.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for encouraging the administration and the Vice Chair Environmental Management, as well as this council. You know, thank you, all of you, for encouraging us and being patient. I take full responsibility for not having brought this sooner. I wish I was here sooner, but as we all recognize that there was value actually in that time and waiting and the lessons that we learned along the way, and seeing what other jurisdictions had done and being able to benefit from their experience. And now is that time, and it's much more comfortable, I think, that we're here at the point we are. So thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for your leadership. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Now we'll take a vote on communication 619. To file, to close communication.
Thanks, everybody. Mahalo.
Thank you, Mayor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 9 in favor of closing file on communication 619. Can I have a motion to close file on communication 480? Motion by Ms. Poindexter and a second by Mr. Onishi. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? 9 in favor. May I have a motion to adjourn? I have a motion to adjourn by Ms. Ford, a second by Ms. Poindexter. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, meeting is POW.
Oh. 5 minutes.
Jeff, how long more do we need?
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, guys, 3 minutes.
Give us 5.
Yes, they just left on there. Oh, no. We have to deal with it. Go for it. Hi. I'm fine, how are you? The environmental management